Star Wars Geek Girls. They're geek girls that like Star Wars. And sometimes cry.
Hello and welcome to Star Wars Geek Girl. As usual, I'm Zoe and I'm here with Lizzy.
Hi. Sorry.
And we,
Yes.
and we have a very special guest with us, Jonah from Geeky Bubble.
Hi. I'm so happy to be podcasting with you both.
I'm
Again.
so excited. I don't think we've podcasted with you since Bad Batch season 2, I think.
Maybe. Yeah, I want to say that. Wait, there's been a season 2? I don't remember.
Or season 1. Sorry, season 2 is coming. Season 1.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
yeah, because
season
for a
1.
second I was like, wait a second.
For a second I was like, did Mando season 2 come after that? But I think so. I mixed it up in my brain. But it's Bad
Oh,
Batch season
gotcha.
1.
Yeah. You know, I've been away from Star Wars for a while, so but I don't remember a second.
No,
season.
we get season 2 in January, which
Great. I'm excited.
it's
for
supposed
that
to be
come
in
back.
September, but I'm not bitter about that at all.
Yeah, it'll be nice to enter the new year with the batch, the Bad Batch.
For sure. And it'll give it more time to breathe from Andor and Tales of the Jedi and stuff. Yeah. Which is what we're going to talk about. See Omega. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited to see Cody. I always say everyone has their clone trooper, and Cody is my clone trooper. I'm very excited to see him again. So
I like Kix. I don't know why. Kix is like, because he came back is the thing. Like he's like a clone that got frozen and now he's like back. But yeah,
Jonah, I think I know who your clone is.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know whether your listeners won't be able to see this, but I'm wearing a blue and white sweater, and so yeah, gotta support my my Captain Rex and his fellow troopers.
Yeah. I also like Gregor. Gregor's cool too. Gotta appreciate Gregor.
Yeah. Although when he came back in Bad Batch, I was like, no, I know where your fate lies.
At least he gets a few good years on the fishing tank.
It's true. Yeah.
That's compared to a lot of clones,
a lot more.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Hunting Jupa.
Yep. So we're not gonna talk about Bad Batch season 2 yet, but we are gonna talk about Tales of the Jedi, which came out yesterday. Although I stayed up till midnight 2 nights ago because I can do that now. It's not 3 a.m. anymore for me, which is pretty exciting. I stayed up till midnight, watched all of Tales of the Jedi, and then watched the Andor episode, and it was like 2:30, and I was like, I need to go to bed. It was a good time. So I'm curious, what are everyone's spoiler-free thoughts on Tales of the
Jedi? Jonah, you go first.
Oh, okay. So I enjoyed them from beginning to end. Like I know there are some comments out there regarding some changes and whatnot, but I really enjoyed the stories. I found it interesting that the main two characters these shorts focused on were Ahsoka and Dooku, and so I really appreciate seeing certain gaps in their lives, and so yeah, I enjoyed it, and I hope that this continues so that way they feature other Jedi moving forward, because it'd be great to get like a Tales of the Jedi second season with Kanan and his story and some gaps in those. Yeah, like I would be
all
so
I want
happy.
Is Kanan. I don't care if they don't do anybody else. I want Kanan more than anything. So bad.
Yeah, and like or even like the kids that we see in the Young Jedi arc, like if Gunji, for example, like I know he's going to show up later on in the Bad Batch, but yeah, I would love to see where he's been. And so yeah, I want more Tales of the Jedi.
For sure. Yeah, for me, I really liked all of them. There were some, like I think for me, like I loved the Ahsoka ones, and I was like, oh my god, Ahsoka, like that was very me. But I thought the Dooku ones were just so much more interesting, and like I feel like they had something to say. So I was really interested in the Dooku ones, especially because I've listened to the Dooku Jedi Lost audiobook, and seeing how that kind of fit into that story too was really cool. But I think my favorite one was episode 5, which was an Ahsoka one.
Yeah, episode 5, I had tweeted a GIF to Dave, and it was, I have a lot of questions. Number 1, how dare you?
Yeah, for me, it was mostly I was more so paying attention to like the animation and the art of it all because I really, really liked the Clone Wars, like just in general of how it looked, especially because we see like it's a little like rough at first, but like it still looks good. And then like it gets so much better, even though it is like very geometric in its shapes, it's like now more smoother in a way. And just like I really like the textures of it all. So I just really liked seeing that style again because it was like the backgrounds they did it again where it was like mostly like painted, like that was so cool and I missed it so much. I also just liked seeing Do again because I did listen to the drama and I thought it like I wasn't obsessed with it like Afra or like Phasma obsessed with it, but I still really really liked it, and I liked seeing more of him and like how it happened. And Ahsoka was also really good. I think of the Ahsoka ones, the last one and just the first one were really good. I liked, yes.
All right, so we're gonna get into some spoilers now. We can just go episode by episode. I think makes sense. So the first one is an Ahsoka one. So I was interested because I thought it would be like 3 Ahsoka and then 3 Dooku, and it was Ahsoka, 3 Dooku, 2 Ahsoka, which was really interesting and kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if it was, I was trying to figure out the timeline, and it seems like it's just going in order timeline wise.
Yeah,
So
that's what I figured out too. Because I mean, I don't know exactly how old like Dooku and Qui-Gon are supposed to be in the first one of theirs, but I guess Ahsoka could have been baby before that. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, Clone Wars wasn't in order, and we just rolled with it. So it's all good. So yeah, so the first one, Baby Ahsoka, super cute.
Yes.
I swear they use the same sound effects as Grogu. Like some of those sounds, I was like, Grogu said that. You're quoting Grogu right now.
I would not be surprised.
No, they're just talking the same. They're saying the same thing. No, I think it's funny when you do hear like baby noises that movies put in because it's like a lot of really basic baby noises like that, and it's still really cute though.
There was a few where I'm like, Grogu said that exact same thing. That's the where it's poetry, it rhymes. That's what
great babies think alike.
Ahsoka's mom was really cool.
Yes.
A lot like her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very happy when the husband said her name. I was like, whoa.
A mom has a name and she didn't die.
And
that was surprising too. I was like, oh,
that she just got her baby taken from her, but she didn't die.
I can't tell you how worried I was.
Her. She gave her. Also, I'm curious about Chiguta physiology because there's Shak T who doesn't seem that old, and they're like all the way down to her feet, and then there's that like old lady. And they were like chest length. I'm just curious how that works now.
Yeah, I'm curious about it too.
If it's like a genetic thing or like.
Yeah, it might be like an earlier conversation that we had prior to recording, just like height wise, like some people are taller than others, and so but they could be the same age, and so yeah, it might be something related to that.
Yeah, I'm sure like it's the same way they're different colors, different lengths for sure too. I just thought it was funny. Yeah, it was cool to see like the village and everything, and like it was interesting because it's like they have like these like culture and rituals, but like also by the time Ahsoka's born, like you have people in the village who are like, no one does that anymore. Like, what do you mean take the baby out on a hunt? You know, which was like an interesting dynamic to see. Um, I did notice that the creature that I forget what it's called. The creature her mom shoots, I think, is the same one that Yoda rides in the 2003 Clone Wars. The same
No
species.
way,
I
really?
mean, I could be wrong, but that's exactly what it looked like to me. So
I didn't even think about that.
I just thought it was neat. Cause I hadn't actually figured that thing. That's why I remember it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think just the mom being wanting to stick to this tradition was really cool because I mean even now like there's like with say my family I guess like it's not as aggressive as taking a baby out to hunting, but like there's certain traditions that we still have in the family, that don't need to be followed, but it would be nice to. um so I think that was very nice, and also like she's a year old. She's so cute. 'Cause
Yeah.
yeah, she's adorable.
I found it interesting that I wonder if because I'm not a parent, so I don't deal with children very often. And so I'm not really sure what 1-year-olds do or think or how they acknowledge things. So I don't know whether it's accurate that a 1-year-old would understand that this creature had just been shot, that this is the death happening, and that she has to face it. And so I don't know. I mean, this is Star Wars. Anything can happen in this universe. But yeah, I was very intrigued by that and how she had to be exposed to this at a very, very young age.
Mhm.
And yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I also was thinking that exact same thought. I was like, would a 1-year-old do this? Like, would a 1-year-old understand and like get up and touch the like animal's face? Like I'm not judging, but I don't know. I think as a 1-year-old, I was like eating Christmas ornaments, but like that was it. I was not ready for a hunt. Um, but yeah, so just they're going on a hunt. She does end up shooting one of them. Great job, mom. And then this giant like wolf thing, of
It
course,
was
because Dave, but
I thought it was more like a cat.
it's like a
yeah,
giant cat.
like a saber-toothed tiger sort of a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And my friend
Dave wouldn't have a
Lisa,
wolf being mean. Come
Oh,
on.
gotcha.
that's
Got heard.
I mean in Rebels there were the black wolves that I guess were growling at Ezra. But anyway, that's
That's
besides the
as
point.
mean as they get with Dave, I think.
That's true. That's true. Oh, I was going to say something about my friend Elisa had brought up that that the creature reminded her of Pikachu. And so
Interesting.
now I can't stop thinking about it. And so yeah, I really loved the idea of a space saber-toothed tiger and space kangaroos in the Star Wars short.
Yeah,
Also, the old lady Togruta
with the
had
tukas.
they were like little puppy tukas,
They
and I'm
were.
so
They were
obsessed.
like panda tukas
They were
almost.
little puppies,
And they
and
were like,
Star Wars
those cats with the stubby legs.
Star Wars has not had as many dogs as cats, and I think that's been such a crime. And I'm glad we got some adorable puppies. And I will empty my bank account on the plushies the second they're released.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm so
totally
ready.
love them.
It took us so long to get like Lothcat plushies. I'm very worried, but I hope we get some of the Shakti or the
Yeah.
Togruta puppies for
I
sure.
want to know what their names are. What are they called?
They're so cute. I'm sure the episode guide will
Reveal
whatever
more
they want.
information.
Yeah, or name them because I'm obsessed with them. But the episode was super interesting, and then also when after baby Ahsoka rides the saber-toothed tiger back into town, and they're like, oh, like Ahsoka's a Jedi, and then we don't see what happens, but obviously we know Plo Koon came and took her to the temple. So I wonder if, because clearly this was like they were excited about it and they knew of the Jedi. So this is clearly something that they were, maybe they were sad because they were going to miss her, but also they were like, it was an honor to give Ahsoka to the Jedi, which is interesting.
Yeah.
That's what the feeling I got.
Yeah, one of the comments that I had in the back of my mind was that it's it's intriguing the fact that people just naturally associate force sensitive people. I feel like I use that word too close in the same sentence. They see that and they automatically think Jedi. And it's because there isn't that much knowledge about them, I guess, or it's just the only thing that they recognize when they see the Force is Jedi. And so I personally, I wish, being that the this town seemed very spiritual, especially the older lady, I kind of wish that she had said something vaguer than that, like she's one with the Force. Because I feel like Jedi is like, well, not every Force sensitive becomes a Jedi, and some people are Force sensitive, and over time they lose that Force sensitivity if they don't use it or if they don't practice with it. So yeah, I kind of wish it was like a little bit more vague. But for what it was, we know where it's headed. Plo Koon comes in and eventually takes little Ahsoka with him. So but that doesn't seem to be like an immediate thing that happens. I think because the drawing that we saw
time.
Yeah, because the drawing we saw, she was just like a little bit, she was like
she's a little
walking
bit taller. Her montrals were a little bit more defined.
Yeah.
She was standing and walking a bit more steadily in the like 2 seconds of that flashback. Yeah. So it does make me wonder if there was, past exposure to Jedi in this village, if there are other Togruta Jedi that
that
could
makes sense. Yeah.
Shock T's one that we know in Ahsoka's time, but there's also some in like the High Republic. Like this could go back years. It could be 100 years later legends of a Jedi that from this village. So I would be curious to learn about that. I'm not sure we will, but it'd be interesting for sure.
You never know. I mean, I didn't think we would ever get this story. So more than just that photo, that drawing that Dave had done years ago. So you never know.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, this one's really cool. It's a great way to start it, I think, for sure. Because it wasn't like Jedi in the sense of like lightsabers, but just in the more like the idea of life and death that Ahsoka's mom shows her is, you can definitely link it to the Jedi philosophy about life and death. And like this is a part of death is a part of life and you can't look away from it, So it's, while it's not like official Jedi-ness yet, it's still like Ahsoka tames the beast. Like the whole village has their guns ready to go, and Ahsoka, being the Jedi, is the one to show it kindness, even in the face of fear. So while this isn't like Jedi Temple lightsabers kind of Jedi story, it's still very much a Jedi story, and I thought that was really cool.
So here's a question for you two. Do you think her parents are still alive, or do you think that they pass away before the Jedi come into the picture, or do they, unwillingly give her up because they know this is the right thing for her?
Well, I don't know.
I mean,
especially like we said, I don't know 1-year-olds, and maybe she's like 1.5, 2. I don't know. Like would she remember her parents then? Because what's the earliest that the Jedi come and pick up those kids?
I mean,
or the latest
there's
besides
some
Anakin.
Because we know like the Rodian baby in Clone Wars, he seems probably about Ahsoka's age here. Obi-Wan gives her back to her mother. And it's like, you're too, like, these kids are too young in that arc of the Clone Wars. So they clearly have at least a couple years with their parents. And I also say, like, you know, they probably take them 2 or 3, in which it's like maybe they don't remember their mother, but Luke and Leia remember their mother. And that she died minutes after they were born, you know? So it's like the Force sensitivity can definitely seem to make them remember better.
Yeah.
As far as if she's alive or not, on one hand, I don't think there's any indication that they wouldn't be necessarily. On the other hand, if the Empire had access to like the list of parents of Jedi, like, is that something they'd maybe just to, you know, I feel like if, you know, like, even like, I thought I got the feeling, and you can get the feeling from the like the flashback thing with Ahsoka and Plo, that this is something that, you know, I'm sure it's sad, but it's like it's an honor for Ahsoka to be taken to the temple. So I feel like, you know, if I was a parent, and I mean, I'm not a parent, but like if I was a parent and I willingly gave my child to the Jedi temple, whether it was I thought it was a good thing for them or whatever, and then I heard like all the Jedi were wiped out, I feel like parents would want to talk about that, and I could see the Empire trying to make them not talk about that. You know what I mean? So
true. And we're also talking about Dave here, so maybe they are gone.
I
You know, long dead.
But I think they certainly could be alive. You know, I don't think. You know, I could see it very easily going either way.
I just, you know, I just associate with Dave all these heartbreaking stories, and so, you know, I wouldn't put it past him, just because I feel like that would really like crush my heart. Like, oh no.
She's so cool too. I really like the rifle. It was like an old like musket, and like a bit ornate. I thought it was really cool, the rifle that she had. It was just fun looking. I don't know.
Yeah. It was very oh gosh, Sula Quain vibes.
Yeah. Sula Quain and Baru. They're all the rifle moms.
Yes.
Moving on to the next episode?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Justice is Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
Young geometrically shaped Dooku. And looks very much vampire-like. Like he always looked vampire-like, but now he's like younger immortal vampire.
Yeah, the like hair things. Yeah, I could see it. I didn't even think vampire, but I see it now.
Yeah, and I totally see it.
Young Qui-Gon is interesting as well.
Yeah, why is his whole chest out?
Listen. That's a good question.
I just say because I saw him and I was like, okay.
Are you slut shaming Qui-Gon Jinn right now? Is that what's happening?
A little bit, because like look at Dooku and then look at him. Like he looks like if Axel was gonna wear a tunic. Like
oh gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah, I honestly, one of the first things I thought is like, why are you showing that much skin?
Where do you think Obi-Wan got it from?
That's true. That is a great point.
I will say something I immediately noticed in this episode was the very like medieval Europe aesthetic of the town, which is something I feel like we usually associate with like fantasy. So seeing that like kind of aesthetic and architecture in Star Wars was pretty neat. Because I don't think we've really seen that before, but this was very like, you know, old-timey European, like castles and dragons kind of look, which I thought was pretty cool. And also I think fits with the episode very well. So that was like my first notice was that village. The look of it. Also there's another doggy, and I love doggy.
Yeah, that one was like an actual dog.
The dog.
Like kind of like a chihuahua, but like like a lengthy one.
You call like every dog-like creature Chihuahua. You did that.
I really like them.
Yeah, I don't know my
really
breeds
miss
all that
mine.
well, so I feel like it was
gave
like
me,
some sort
like-
of hound.
I was thinking like Boxer Great Dane, but like smaller than a Great Dane.
I don't
Great
know
Dane's, like,
those
cute.
dogs.
Yeah, see, same.
I only know Chihuahua, Husky, and like Pug. That's all I know.
I had when I was a kid. I had a. You ever have a Fandex or see one of those? It's like a weird little flip thing, and it's like you can just go through and flip through all the things. I had a Star Wars one with like different planets and characters, and then I also had one of dog breeds when I was a kid. So I had my Star Wars and my dog Fandex, and I feel like that's still the pretty essential cores of my personality. So I don't know.
But yeah, I'm trying to remember the rest of this episode.
Well,
So there was the son. So there was a senator's son was kidnapped.
That's right.
And they were looking for him. And there's this. They were like looking in the village, and this.
He was like kidnapped politely, though.
Kidnapped very politely. Well, because they walk into the cantina, and they're like looking for it. And there's one moment which was really cool. Was Dooku sits down. He's trying to figure out where the son is, and he puts his lightsaber on the table. And it reminded me of something George said, or Dave said, about how when he met George, and it reminded him of like how he would imagine a Jedi doing business. And he mentioned like to sit down, put the lightsaber on the table, and talk, which I thought was pretty neat. To have it put in Star Wars like this officially. So they like, there's this woman who's like, I'll take you to the sun, and they're like, oh, you're the kidnapper, and then the entire cantina stands up. This is like pretty much
community
the whole
effort.
town. For sure. They go to the barn where the sun is.
Right.
And I really liked the big droid that they had here.
Oh yeah, that was a great design.
The kid was like, oh, I forgot what they called him, what his name was. Like, oh, he's keeping me company. It's like, oh.
And just a reminder, because I need it. Raxus is Dooku's homeworld. No,
his homeworld's Sereno.
Yeah, you can remember it because it sounds like a serrano pepper, chili pepper.
Oh yeah, that's actually a great way to remember it. Yeah, I honestly could not for the life of me remember, and like I remembered Raxus. Oh wait,
Raxus is from the Bad Batch.
Yes,
the world, the Bad Batch.
I was just going to say, wait a second, was that the episode?
You definitely
with
remembered
that
it
senator?
from something. Yeah. Yes. It was Bad Batch.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, Sereno, because Count Dooku's family, for those of you that read or listened to Dooku Joy Lost, Count Dooku's family is what the planet Sereno is named after. That's why Dooku doesn't have a first and last name. His name is just Dooku of Sereno.
Yeah,
fascinating.
Serrano. I know Serrano, and then I know in Andor his name is the cereal.
Cereal.
Like police
cereal
guy.
corn.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
His name is Cyril Karn, but he is cereal corn.
You said that. I thought you were implying that was the name of the cereal.
And corn cob Vance. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Those are the three.
Oh, okay, great. So I'm glad we clarified that, because I was a bit confused and I didn't have time to Google it or Wikipedia it. So thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
Yeah, so they get to the barn, and and I don't think we mentioned, this town is like very much struggling, like very clearly like not good. So they get to the barn, and the son is like, oh yeah, they kidnapped me, but like look at how they're living. Like, this is the nicest rich kid ever. Like seriously, he's like, yeah, like they kidnapped me, but like, you know, it's okay. Like, look how they're living. Like, my father needs to hear this. And it's like, wow, you're a A+.
A+ for the bare minimum. But
well,
yeah,
listen, he got kidnapped. I wouldn't blame him if he was like scared, but he was very like, yeah, like, my dad deserves to have his son kidnapped.
Yeah, he
You
wasn't
know?
like, wait
Props
till I
to
tell
that
my
kid.
father about this.
Give him some props.
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't Draco about it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, I like the droid that was with them that was very crab-like.
I
I
can't
don't remember
remember his name. I felt so bad.
PT
He's like,
something.
oh, it's okay. He's keeping me company. I don't
Yeah.
know. Star Wars keeps getting me very attached to these loading droids. First with Ned B, now with this one.
Yeah, but then the senator himself comes over because one of the townspeople was very hungry and ratted them out, which was very sad, but very, like.
And again, like one like seemingly leader kidnapped lady, she's at least the one that talked to Dooku the most, was like, I can't blame her, like, we're all struggling. There's a lot of understanding going around in this episode. It's very nice
from the
see.
senator.
Yeah.
No, not the senator, but everyone else. It was very nice to see, like, that, compared, like, it could have so easily been another story where everyone's just yelling at each other and shooting each other. And there was some of that, but not, could have very easily just been all of that. I'm glad it wasn't. It made it much more interesting this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the senator is like, instead of thinking, oh, my son got kidnapped, let me like pay these people, he's like, no, my son got kidnapped, I'm gonna kill all these people and destroy it, which was Dooku very much did not enjoy, and so he took matters into his own hands and got really aggressive, because the senator was shooting everyone. Surprisingly, from what I saw, like one person died, but everyone who got shot was like hurt. So I guess that's good. But yeah, then Dooku kind of went on a rampage and started choking him.
Yeah, literally took it into his own hand.
Yeah, and I
thought that was. Oh yeah, go for it.
No, I was just saying, like, Qui-Gon. Like, I think that I probably would something that Dooku taught him, but like I thought it was cool that he was like, no, master, don't do that. Fine, I'm gonna go get help, and then have someone else convince you otherwise. But
yeah, he actually, because the son they kept the son in the barn during the shootout, and Qui-Gon goes and frees the son and is like, go stop Dooku. It's like, he says, go save your father. It's like, okay.
It does make me wonder whether this isn't the first instance that this has happened. Like, if Qui-Gon is already aware that his master just tends to lose it in certain instances, and that's how he knew how to approach the situation. If it was the first time, though, good on him, because he could have Dooku could have hurt Qui-Gon in his blindness to seeking justice, his own form of justice. And I think it was fascinating to see Dooku. It was one of the few moments where I kind of identified with him, because there are often times in reality when things happen and evil, terrible, awful things happen, and you can't help but get mad over it. And those were that instance when he lost it. It's something that I'm sure a lot of people have felt at one point or another. And so I thought it was very relatable. And it's a very difficult line to walk, that line of being a peacekeeper and then that slippery slope down to the dark side, and he was definitely starting to slide down towards it.
Yeah, and I think something in this episode, or it might have been the next episode, but Dooku says something like, he's mad, and he's like, you're like, letting all these people suffer just, for you to be rich, essentially, like, or like for your privilege, and it's so interesting because Dooku, obviously he started with the intentions to make the galaxy a better place, but then he becomes, by the Clone Wars, he really becomes that, so many people suffer as a result of things the separatists are directly doing. You know, sometimes it's a result of just a battle, and sometimes it's like the separatists like going to the Lermans and like testing their terrible weapons on the Lerman village, you know, and like it's just so interesting to see Dooku really become, you know, in his efforts to fight against a certain kind of person, he really became that kind of person.
Yeah. To him, the ends justify the means. So whatever was necessary, he justified in his own head, and without realizing that he became the thing that he was trying to fight all along.
And in that way, I think you know, like Anakin's story is very similar to that too, you know, in a lot of ways. So it's so interesting to see that story happen, but in a very different way.
It's also interesting because like they don't think that they're in the wrong, except maybe later, like in the episode, like the last episode of Dooku. But like later on, they don't think they're in the wrong. They think they're doing what's right. Like they think that, like it's an interesting thing because what you deem as like right and wrong could be completely different as to someone else that thinks right and wrong. And I think that's always really interesting to talk about. Obviously, sometimes it can go a little wacky, but sometimes it's like it's interesting to see, especially with villains of the story that weren't always villains, that just, you know, sway too far and unfortunately either can't get out or they just like they've pretty much lost sight of what they were trying to do in the first place, like you guys were saying.
Yeah, it's like the same thing with and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but his version of peace and order, like that to me isn't peace and order, my dude. So yeah, it's someone else's definition is going to vary drastically, and their approach to it is also going to be very different. It reminds me of that moment in Rebels with Kanan, Ezra, and Saw Gerrera, where his approach to rebelling and doing what he does is going to be way different than other people that you meet. And so that's one of the things that Kanan had taught Ezra. Not everyone's going to do it the way that we do or the way that you do. So yeah, it's very, I can see that lesson, you know, emanating from this episode.
Yeah.
And it's something I think they're talking about in Andor right now too, which is really interesting how it's something that's really pervading so much of Star Wars. Also, I did want to mention the older woman in this episode is voiced by Vanessa Marshall herself.
Yeah, Vanessa.
So I thought it sounded like her, and then I had to double check real quick before I said it.
So cool.
Shout out to her. She's Hera. She's the Jedi Master in Tales from Galaxy's Edge. Popping up everywhere, and I love it every time.
Yeah, Queen.
All right.
Yeah, we can move on to
the next episode is Still with Dew. I love it. You guys were saying before, but like it was interesting how they spread everything out. Like it was Ahsoka, and then it's all Dooku, and it's Ahsoka again, which was interesting choice. Good, not bad, but like I wonder why they did that. Or was it to just like throw us off like they did in Clone Wars?
I think it was a little bit timeline wise. I would also say that I think the first and last episodes, which are both the Ahsoka ones, I think were good ways to start and end the series as well, in my opinion.
That's true. That's fair.
Yeah. So the next one, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say I feel like the reason Dave, because I think he pretty much wrote most of the episodes, if not all of the episodes. I feel like Dave chose Ahsoka and Dooku obviously because Ahsoka is that's his character. But just looking at those two characters and their stories and their trajectories, they both became very disillusioned with the Jedi,
Mhm.
the Jedi Order. And it's interesting to see how Ahsoka approaches her that discovery that this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and Dooku's this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And so yeah, I really appreciated the comparison and the contrast. And so yeah, I feel like that's the reason he might have chosen those two characters. Who really knows? But I really appreciated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense too, like you said. And I also think it's interesting because both of these characters are characters where we've seen that moment where they leave the Jedi Order. Ahsoka's more prominently in Clone Wars, but then Dooku's in Jedi Lost. So seeing little moments throughout their stories that aren't that moment but are still significant was super interesting.
Yeah.
So the second Dooku one's choice, it has Mace Windu in it. Every time I see Mace Windu in Clone Wars, because Clone Wars is very stylized, so like a lot of people don't necessarily look very much like their live action actors. A few definitely do, and like every time I see Mace Windu, I'm like, yeah, that's Samuel L. Jackson animated for sure. I think his model was slightly different here than the one used in Clone Wars, and I was still like, yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
Very
Very recognizable. Yeah, I also like this. I liked all the Dooku episodes, but this one was also very good because it's Dooku again trying to take matters into his own hands. And
Yeah.
I liked what you were saying, Jonah, is like these horrible things happen even in real life, and all we can do is be mad at it because like otherwise unfortunately we can't take this justice into our own hands. That's something we have to leave up to others, unfortunately. But yeah, I just the slow like distrust that Dooku has for the council is very, very relatable. But yeah, this one was also another investigation. I like the investigation episodes. But one of the Jedi Master? Yeah. She was on the council. I guess was guarding another senator. And the senator was trying to meet with someone. I guess what was the reason for meeting up?
So
Like
the senator of this planet, there was some threats. People were threatening him. And the Jedi were sent to protect him, essentially.
Yes.
And trying to protect him, like in trying to, do some reconnaissance in the area that they went to. That's when she got betrayed by those soldiers.
Yeah, from behind.
Yeah.
Which
how you get a Jedi, you gotta get him from behind.
Yeah, sadly.
Apparently.
Yeah, which is interesting given the episode we get later on with Ahsoka and trying to predict when a trigger is going to be pulled on you. So yeah, this, unfortunately not all of the Jedi get the same training that Anakin gives Ahsoka. So unfortunately they do succumb to those surprise attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
this episode was interesting,
I'm not a great
too.
Jedi, but my back is always probably exposed as well. Dad's probably not. Can't get my dad. He's too fast. But
The dogs are scared of him on his walk.
Yeah, the dogs fear him. But yeah, so Dooku and Mace are on the case for investigating.
Well, they're not supposed to investigate, which was what was interesting. Because the council sent them to retrieve her body and bring it back home for a funeral.
Yeah,
and
but
Dooku's
Dooku
the one
wanted
that's
to
like
investigate, which I was all for.
Yeah, it was Dooku and Mace Windu paired up together was something I did not know I needed. But that dynamic was very interesting to see.
Which is interesting because I feel like I need to revisit certain parts that include Mace Windu because I know that he's like a by the book kind of guy, but I also feel like there were instances, and I might be wrong about this because I'm misremembering, but there were instances in which, he would take matters into his own hands, and so it's great to see him at a point in his, I guess, quote unquote youth when he is by the book, and the council told him that they need to be doing this one specific thing. This is what we're going to do, and and it's eventually what leads him to become part of the council himself. And it's just like, I don't know, I've never been a Mace fan. So I definitely have to revisit certain parts of his story.
Yeah,
I think
we all want to be a Mace fan, but
I like Mace. And I think what was also interesting here was like Mace Windu is, ostensibly by the book, like you said, but like he didn't argue that much when Dooku's like, "Hey, let's do this." Mace is like, "Oh, well, the council said that." And he's like, Dooku's like, "Nah, come on." Mace is like, "All right."
Yeah, he didn't fight it, because I feel like he was also curious, and if someone had to take the fall, it would be Dooku.
Yeah.
But they do
Also,
eventually find out.
I am curious to have more about Mace and Windu, or Mace and Dooku's dynamics. I'm gonna look it up really quick because I don't sound like a fool. But I believe Mace is also a Padawan of Yoda, if I remember correctly.
I want to say that. Yeah, I feel like everyone was a Padawan of Yoda. So even if he's not, I feel like you're correct in some shape or form. So
yeah.
Well, because I know Dooku was like a Padawan, not just like a youngling, or trained by him.
Gotcha.
Maybe he wasn't. It was some other name. Sislin Mirror is coming up, so maybe not. I lied. Oh well.
That's okay.
It'd be like that.
Yeah, they find out that the guards are the ones that shot the Jedi, and so they go, and Dooku goes to one of the guards, which the guards were saying like, "Oh no, the senator's like giving away our land and like for money and exploiting us, blah blah blah," which felt that, but so Dooku goes and talks to the guard about it in more detail about what was happening, especially because they didn't go to the Jedi, which I thought was interesting because like again we're seeing Dooku, like his little brain it's going another way, and so they're like, no, why would we tell the Jedi? Like they're the lapdogs for these senators, like that are making money and blah blah blah. So Dooku has a little conversation about that with him, and he's like, you know what, you are right. And they go and they have the funeral, which I really like the Jedi funerals. They're really cool.
Yeah, with that light that shoots up. Yeah, that's really an interesting concept. But yeah, that guy, that soldier dude, I really loved his scar.
Like his whole design was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was an HAWT hot sort of design.
Yes.
And I would love to see where this character, because I feel like Dooku and this character whose name I can't remember now, like struck some sort of, like their visions were sort of aligned in some way. And so it'd be interesting to see if another tale comes out later on, whether this character would make a reappearance with with Dooku
if you could just
working for him or something.
Separatist things.
Yes.
Separatist stories.
Yeah, especially because his like character design was so specific. I feel like we might see it again because
they put so much detail into that scar.
He looked a certain way.
I think
But yeah, but
something
then
so
eventually,
interesting.
go ahead.
Sorry,
Sorry.
I was thinking about something so interesting about that conversation was like, it's a conversation we see during the Clone Wars where a lot of Jedi, are now faced with the question of like we're preserving the peace and like, the separatists are doing like genocide things. So, like we need to step in against that. And if we're gonna do it, it's gonna be much better if we do it with the support of the Senate and the Republic. But it's only towards the end of the war where more Jedi start to be like, maybe we need to like break ourselves off from this and stuff. And unfortunately, by that time, it's really too late. And it's interesting because if you read like the High Republic stuff, it's like that's when Jedi first start getting really involved with the Republic and seeing. It's interesting to see back where that started because it started with such a good place and such, hopeful and trying to help people. And at that point in time, like the Republic is the best way to help people, and seeing how it goes very wrong and seeing a very slow decline is very interesting. And seeing it, I always love seeing the politics side of Star Wars. It's very cool to see it here.
Yeah. We leave off the episode with Mace getting picked for the Jedi Council since she's gone and they need to fill the seat. Dooku seems kind of upset about it.
He's miffed for sure. Yeah. And I wonder, because I think one thing about Dooku, and it's not shown as much here, but like he is pretty prideful. So part of me is like, oh, he kind of wanted that seat, But also it also kind of seems like he feels like he's like a bit betrayed by Mace, Dooku's clearly, bumping up against the Jedi Council, and he had some kind of trust in Mace, and it's like, oh, like you're joining them now, it's not really a fair way for him to be towards Mace. But
yeah, the way I read that scene was that Mace has been, I'm trying to find the right word for it, but a suck up. Yeah, that's like the innocent version of it, a suck up. And that like, like a teacher's pet sort of a thing ends up being in that position. Whereas the people who, question and don't follow the rules exactly as they are written or to the letter are often, cast aside. Qui-Gon was like that. He was like, had very strange ideals, and there's Dooku. I mean, Anakin, although his was more about you gotta be more patient. But yeah, I always found that if you don't play by the rules, you're not gonna end up with one of those seats. And so yeah, I really felt that in that moment.
And I think it's interesting too, because like Qui-Gon was offered a seat and declined it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So I do wonder like if we'll ever get to see like maybe how Dooku felt about that, and like what that means. So
I wonder if his whether he said no was because of maybe some commentary that Dooku might have passed on to him regarding that, and maybe that influenced his
partially
decision.
because he wouldn't have been allowed to continue training Obi-Wan.
That too. I don't remember Star Wars.
It's okay. That's what I'm here for.
I know. Thank you for filling in those gaps for me.
Sal's not here, so I gotta do it. I'm an inferior model, but I'm trying.
Oh no, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you. Yeah, because
working
these are
hard.
things that the little details that just I gloss over and don't remember. So I really appreciate it because it puts things into context properly.
I just read too many books.
Which is good. That's a great thing to do.
Yeah, I'm like halfway through my last book to be fully caught up, and then another one comes out in like 2 weeks. It's fine. Yeah, so then I guess we can move on to the third Dooku episode, which is the Sith Lord. And I think this one, they were all good, but this one far and above was my favorite.
Oh yeah, episode. It was just like top
tier. I would probably put it as my second favorite after the episode after this about Ahsoka, for sure.
Same.
So we had to see Yaddle, voiced by Bryce Dallas Howard, because why not? She did a great job. I was just like, it's like Bryce Dallas Howard is playing Yoda, and I was like, Okay. Like, cool. And she talks. Listen, okay, everyone's making fun of Yoda, and they're like, Yoda's just a freak because Yaddle talks normal. And I think Yoda, this basic might not be his first language, and I'm a Yoda defender, unfortunately.
Then what is his first language?
I don't know. There's so many languages in Star Wars, bro. Listen, he's like 900 years old. Maybe when he was a baby taken to the Jedi Temple, maybe it wasn't on Coruscant, and maybe they spoke a different language than basic
It's
at that
true.
temple.
It could have been.
Isn't
I
he
can
in
see
the
that.
comics of High Republic?
Yeah, and he's still
Oh
like
yeah, the
500.
ripped,
He's
Yeah.
the
still like
ripped Yoda.
He's still like 500 years old then, though.
Oh,
He's still like 600, maybe 600. I don't know. He's still a couple hundred years old.
I just remember that concept art.
He is ripped. Anyway, don't make fun of Yoda. He's a bilingual king.
Yeah. The way I think about it in my head is I feel like Yoda speaks normally, but he speaks the way he does just to mess with people.
That's
like
also very likely.
That's my personal canon.
It makes sense. Every interaction Yoda has with his first interaction with most characters definitely leans toward like what he does with Luke. That's partially, living on a swamp planet for like 20 years, but also like he just likes to have his fun. Like he beats on R2, and he's met R2 before.
Yeah.
He starts beating on with the stick, just how Yoda be.
But Yaddle, yeah, that was really fascinating to see that character because we've only seen her in a small appearance here and there, and
she's going to be in the High Republic, which I'm excited for.
Oh, yay! That's cool.
But I think other than that, it's the Phantom Menace when she's a puppet,
right?
She has beautiful hair.
Very nice red hair.
Yeah, very Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah, that's why they picked her for sure. They're like, it's animated, so it doesn't really matter, but we also need a redhead to play this character. Yeah, I'm looking. She doesn't actually appear in anything. She's mentioned in some things.
Yeah,
gotcha.
This is her first big appearance. Good for her. I mean, not really, actually.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
Or the concept art for Yaddle started as a sketch for young Yoda. And became Yaddle.
Young Yoda with really, really nice hair.
Beautiful.
I think the moment that really resonated with me and just it caught me off guard because there's like a little bit of a time jump midway through the episode or like a few minutes after it starts. And when Dooku is standing in front of the tree, the forest tree, and that's like the point where he's like had enough. I thought that was such a great moment because again, there are times when it's like you can't help but give in to whatever it is that you're feeling in that moment. And I think they did that so well.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting, and this is where I draw from Dooku Jedi Lost. So he stands in front of the forest tree, and if you listen to that audio drama, Lizzy, you would know. Dooku's first lesson with Yoda after he's picked as his Padawan, Yoda for like a very long, like I think it's like weeks, maybe months, every day, Yoda sits in front of that forest tree and sits and meditates and doesn't say a word. And every day Dooku tries to join him, talks to him, tries to do anything, and gets nothing from Yoda. Because Yoda's, being Yoda, trying to teach him patience, and Yoda just sits there and meditates. And so finally, one day, Dooku decides to show how powerful he is, and he tries to use the Force to uproot the forest tree. And that's when Yoda's like, all right, you're ready to learn. It's a really interesting sequence in the audio drama, and I think it's what I was thinking of. Because I just re-listened to it over the summer, is what I was thinking of. When he was standing in front of that tree. It's like, because that's really where a lot of things began for Dooku. Now he's standing in front of that tree before, at this point, I keep bringing the books, I'm so sorry, but at this point, it's because he's already left the Jedi, because we know, because in the very beginning he goes into the archives and deletes Kamino, so we know he's already working with Palpatine with the clone army and everything like that. So we know from Padawan that even after he left, he would still visit the temple. So I assume that's what he's doing in this episode, because he left before Phantom Menace.
Right, that makes sense.
So he would visit the temple, and people would still call him master, just as a sign of respect.
Right.
Because at first I was like, he left the Jedi. Then I was like, wait, to like recalibrate.
Another moment that really made me so happy, being that I work in an archive, seeing a closer look of the Jedi Temple archives. And then all of a sudden, when he's deleting and doing his stuff, there's a voice. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a brand new detail, isn't it? Of an archive voice, and voiced by I'm gonna get this wrong, but I want to look it up very briefly because
I have it.
Right. Meg Marchand, yeah, who's worked on The Bad Batch. And so I was just like so excited about this archive voice. And then she ends up responding with like a wave and a heart emoji on Twitter. I was like, oh my gosh, the archive voice has responded to me. So yes, I was having a geeky moment there. But yeah, that was a brilliant detail that I did not think about.
Well, and starting the episode with Dooku erasing the data of Kamino using Sifo Dyas's clearance was such a like just so interesting, because that's like back from Attack of the Clones, you know, and like just I don't know, for some reason just like seeing that happen was very like whoa, like, you know, very much a reminder of what's to come. Right. And you know, and he's walked through, and this is again like Dooku's not in the temples, he doesn't live in the temple anymore, so he's very out of loop. Everyone's buzzing about something, he doesn't know what's going on. And I think it's Yaddle that says, oh, Qui-Gon Jinn found a Sith Lord on Tatooine. And that's when I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And we see adult Qui-Gon, and they have a very nice little exchange where Qui-Gon says he's gonna go look for the Sith Lord, and Dooku's like, well, I can't protect you anymore. And he's like, that's what I have Obi-Wan for. It's like, no.
Sad times. Sad times.
Because we know what's going to happen. This is it's one of those moments where it makes you appreciate the power of a prequel story and how knowing what's going to happen can just enhance something. Because I feel like it's so much, you know, we get very caught up in like not knowing what's going to happen and stuff, and like how that creates tension. But I think knowing what's going to happen just can enhance things so much.
And I don't know whether other people experience this, but even though I know where it's going and I know what people end up doing, like certain characters end up doing, there are moments when Dooku and Yaddle, when Yaddle's like, come back to the light side, essentially, or to us, the Jedi. And it's just like, and part of me was like, do it.
I know. Yeah, same.
Even though I know that this is not going to pan out well, I'm like, oh man, is there a chance that this could happen?
Yeah.
So we get that, and then we get the fourth tree, and that's, you know, Dooku has heard about Qui-Gon and what happened. So it's, you know, cuts from earlier in Phantom Menace to only a little bit later. And then we see Dooku, I believe he goes to Sereno. Is where he meets Palpatine. I could be wrong.
You know, I think that's the same place where Yoda had his remember he went to, I think it was Moraband or something like that, and he started having visions and whatnot. And he ends up going to a place on Coruscant. It was like some yard out somewhere away from the city. And Yeah, and he's fighting with Dooku as they're falling, and Dooku's like laughing. This is when he was voiced by Tim Curry, because I remember the voice standing out so much.
Yeah, and you're right, it is Coruscant.
Yeah, and I think that's the building that they're in, because it reminded me of the dark arts that what's his name that Palpatine was doing. And then poor Rex gets electrocuted. I was like, oh God, what is happening? But yes, I think that's the same place.
You're right. It is, yeah.
I'm pretty
was just
sure
like, this looks like a new place. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we see it in the prequels too.
Yeah, we do.
Maybe.
That's where Dooku meets with Palpatine.
Yes.
At the end of Attack of the Clones.
Good point.
And I think he meets him there in Clone Wars too. It's places everywhere, I guess. Yeah, so he like goes to meet Palpatine, and Yaddle senses something's up, so she gets him like a little shuttle thing and goes and follows him. And I was like, turn around right now,
man, turn around.
But Yaddle, crawls through, and meanwhile, Dooku and Palpatine are all, and Dooku kind of confronts Palpatine. He's like, "You let Maul kill Qui-Gon." Oh yeah. So like, there's clearly
like
still
we both lost Padawans.
Compassion.
Here.
Yeah, he's like, I lost an apprentice. You did too.
For a second, I was like, wait, who is he talking about? Who did he lose? And I totally forgot about Maul being cut in half. I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
He's, we always remember he lived, but
yeah.
didn't always know. Yeah, so, and it's also interesting because now we know like Dooku was already in contact with Palpatine, during Maul's apprenticeship. So it's, obviously there's like Palpatine followed the rule of two to an extent. So it's interesting to see if it's interesting that like he was already working with Dooku, but now that like Maul's out of the way, he's like going to assumably let Dooku fill that role. Because before, other times when we've seen Dooku meet Palpatine, he called him master, and he didn't call him master here. So very interesting. So Yaddle's spying on them and hearing it, and then she reveals herself. And it was a little detail I liked was every time Yaddle was like really looking, or like later when she opens the gate, Palpatine like shields his face because he, just in case she escaped, doesn't want her to see him, which I thought was a neat detail.
Do you think she went into this knowing that she wasn't going to come out alive?
No. I mean, I think the Jedi always kind of assume there's a chance, but I don't think she really believed or really wanted to believe that Dooku would have, was that far gone already.
Right. Yeah. I really loved her awesome moment, her epic moment, opening that door. Although at first I was like, oh my gosh, that it just
no, when it dropped, her. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
My intrusive thoughts came out, and I was like, Dooku, just close the door. Oh. And then
and then you did it.
Because I was like, there's no way they're gonna do it. And then he just like panned to the level, and I was like, no.
It is like it dropped. I feel like doors in Star Wars always open and close so slowly. It's just like dropped.
Yeah. And so when she had that moment, the lighting in that episode, Joel Aaron, I mean, amazing. Gosh. Yeah.
I like their little fight.
Why did she roll forward?
Oh, why did she? Yeah, I thought the same thing. Is like, well, I mean, if she had rolled back, she probably would have fallen and died that way anyway. Yeah. So,
I mean, at least had a chance going forward.
Yeah. She like fell forward. So I was like, what? Well, what was the point of you opening that door?
She probably hit her head. Might not have been thinking super clear.
I don't know. I was like, no.
Poor Yaddle.
It's gone so much better if you just maybe rolled backwards a little bit.
I did like their little fight. I always love Yoda's saber fights. He like jumps around. I like seeing Yaddle do that too. It's always fun to watch.
Yeah, I was like,
lightsaber fights are already fun to watch. When it's a little dude just jumping around against a big dude, it's pretty fun.
yeah. I was like, Dooku, you gotta watch out for your kneecaps. Careful.
Oh, that's so true.
Get them.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was heartbreaking though, like the way that she wanted to convince him, and she was like, "No, I left the council. Like I believe you." And that was sad.
It was very, because she was she was very like, I know like there's issues with the council, but like we can fix them together. Like, and like she really was, she was so frighteningly close to unraveling it all, and like being able to stop all these terrible things we know are going to happen while they're still just barely in motion. It was very Fives of her.
Yeah.
That's what it made me think of.
I'm very curious how the council ended up discovering. I mean, I'm sure they felt it in the Force. Maybe some of them, Yoda, probably felt it. But I do wonder if they were able to like discover her body, and were they able to give her the Jedi burial? Did Dooku just lay her body on the temple stairs? Who knows? But I do wonder like what came after that.
I'm curious too, because I assume they didn't find her body there, because that's a place that Palpatine and Dooku use at least once more to meet. So I assume they wouldn't be meeting a place for Jedi to just go and might find her body. But and especially if the Jedi found their body there, would they maybe look at that place closely, like, hey, a Jedi died here, a former member of the council died here. I don't know. Like, the only way for them to have got her body would be for Dooku to bring it back, which would probably raise questions and stuff. So sadly, I think they probably never disposed of it,
Yeah. Evil. Although now I'm getting like what's her name? Oh my gosh, in Rebels, the Bones.
Luminara?
Yes, Luminara Unduli. Yeah, like maybe can you imagine?
There's still some skin.
That's true.
If they did a Yaddle with Luminara, that would be scary.
I'm sorry, that was a very poor description.
I got it though. I got it. It's all right.
Yeah. But yes, Luminara. Like, imagine if they ended up using that, like, because Palpatine's already like several steps ahead. So I can imagine him having a device like that.
Yeah. Although I do wonder, I don't know, because in Attack of the Clones, when they mention like they think Dooku's up to something, the Jedi are like, no, Dooku, like, what? He's great. He's so chill. So he's definitely
left.
He's retained their trust. Like he's left, and even though other Jedi have seen him do like shadier things by this point, like there's still trust there. Like they let him visit the temple whenever he wants. Like,
I don't know if this was an archive of the modern times here, he would have been banned from the archive. He would not have stepped a foot into the archive. Security would have met him at the door.
Use Psycho Diaz as clearance.
That's true. No, but just just Dooku appearing at all.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Interesting.
Yeah, indeed. But
this episode
that
was very good.
Fantastic episode. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting because Dooku had his like do it moment with Palpatine with Yaddle. Like, she's on the ground, no energy, completely wiped out, and Palpatine's like, kill her then,
and everything comes full circle. Oh, sorry.
Well, especially at the beginning of the fight, Dooku was like, I don't really want to fight Yaddle, and Palpatine's like, if you're loyal to me, you'll do it. He hesitated at first, but he went through with it.
Yeah, it's very like I just said, full circle, because that's what Anakin
ends
up doing to him. Yeah, and we get the the classic "do it" from Palpatine. So it's like, yeah, he suffered the same fate that he gave Yaddle.
Poor Yaddle.
Indeed. R.I.P. I shouldn't have laughed, but that's what I do awkwardly. In awkward
it was a
genuine
R.I.P. and then it was like
oh man. But the next episode, that's the one.
This is my favorite.
Yes,
sure.
Yeah. Same here.
I love this episode, but I was so mad at Anakin. I was like, no, don't do that to her. I understand, but no, don't
tough
be
love. Tough love.
Tell her that you're proud of her right now.
So it starts with Ahsoka doing some training in front of Terra Sinue, Obi-Wan, Yoda. I'm a Gundai, so I'm pointing out I'm a Gundai is there, which is so funny.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I totally forgot that that's his name.
That man.
Captain
I really
Keeley, that's right. I forgot that he had
really
Captain Keeley.
I'm a Gundai and Captain Keeley. Yeah.
Oh,
I really liked her redesigned outfit for early Clone Wars. Very nice.
Yeah.
Huge upgrade. I like the original because I'm like, that's fun, but definitely an upgrade. So, and she's training with like the little remotes. And she does it very well. And little Kanan is there. I like told I was there. And he was so excited. Oh my gosh, I need like, because now I'm like, man, he must have been so excited to meet Ahsoka again. Like,
I know.
Training, and he was like, oh my god, this is so cool.
Part of me wishes we could. Hopefully, we'll get like a Jedi Tales down the line, Tales of the Jedi down the line, where we get Kanan sort of fangirling in the back, overseeing Ahsoka. Like I desperately, the moment I realized, that Ahsoka was going to be part of the series in some way in Rebels, I was just like, man, where's the moment where Kanan obviously knows who Ahsoka is, because Ahsoka is Ahsoka and people gotta know her. And so it's like, how did we not get a Kanan fangirling moment? And so we kind of got it here where he was like, wow, she's so cool, just by his
and then like when they're leaving, he's like talking to Depa, he's like, oh my god, you can't even hear what he's saying, but I imagine he's like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. Oh, it's so cute. I imagine it now when they meet Ahsoka, like right after that scene, as soon as it cuts and they like disperse, Kanan goes to Hera and he's like, why didn't you tell me Fulcrum was Ahsoka? And Hera's like, who? Like,
I know.
Do you think it's still Freddie Prinze Jr.?
Oh,
like even with the little whispering.
yeah, definitely.
Oh no, well the whisper, I'm not sure, because that would have been lots of money.
I think it would have been. I would have, if I was him, I would have been like, I'll do it for free.
Cost effective, I think.
Yeah.
So worth it. Yeah, it was so cute. Yeah. That is something I do wish we would have seen more in Rebels, and maybe we will in like a future Tales of Jedi, would just be Kanan and Ahsoka getting to talk about like Jedi stuff besides just the general philosophy, and more just like they had a similar childhood and like that kind of thing. Not only have a similar childhood, they had a similar childhood that like at this point very much like pretty much no one in the galaxy shares anymore. I would have loved to see that.
Yeah,
maybe someday.
Like, I get they're fighting a war. Like, I get that, okay? But at the same time, there's downtime. Like, there are moments when
they're sitting on the ship, flying in hyperspace.
Yeah, so I would love to see moments like that, just calm moments of people just being people in Star Wars and talking.
We did get a good few of those in Rebels. That's just one I wish we would have gotten.
Yeah, sure. It's true. Yeah,
we can always ask for more. But Rebels did give us plenty. Rest in peace. I love you, Rebels, so much. Yeah, so then Ahsoka finishes her awesome training moves, and Anakin's like, yeah, it was fine. And he's like, that's too easy. Like, all Jedi do that. And Ahsoka's like, all Jedi do that test. And he's like, yeah, that's the problem. And so they go to like a hangar, and it's a whole bunch of clones and Rex. And he has the clones up in a circle, and he's like, "You're gonna be blocking the clones are gonna be shooting at you." He says Rex and the boys. I just think that's a great little phrase, Rex and the boys. I just love it. So Circle and Ahsoka, they fire stun shots, which I feel like obviously they shouldn't use kill shots, but I feel like stun shots are a little harder to block.
They're way bigger.
Yeah, but it's good practice for smaller things. Maybe I don't know how it works. I have the VR game Vader Immortal, and there's a lightsaber training mode. I'm so garbage at it. I'm blocking. Well, I can usually block them, but they always want you to deflect it back at the thing, and I can't do that. I play it in the third game, so I can force pull a blaster to me and just shoot them or throw the lightsaber at them because I cannot aim blocking the shot.
But yeah, I honestly, I immediately thought of the scene in the Ahsoka arc, in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, when she's running away from all the troopers trying to capture her. Instantly thought of those moments, and obviously in the final arc, when the clones are actually under Order 66. So I just thought, wow, I obviously Anakin did not know that's where they were headed, but I loved the overall message. The only way I can protect you is to show you how to protect yourself. And I just thought, wow.
And that's something, even it's easy to compare it to the clones, but even like I think we see that in the episode with Chewie and the younglings on the what are they called? The Bosks.
Oh yeah, now I'm forgetting now. Trandoshans.
Oh my god. Yeah, the
Trandoshans.
With the Trandoshans, like it's a very similar thing. It's something Plo says to Anakin, like she has your training, like she'll be okay. It's something, and then she applies it over and over again. And I thought it was so interesting. Because also, she I don't think many Jedi would have survived what we see her do on that table when it's a circle of clones and she's deflecting all the shots. We know a lot of Jedi wouldn't survive that. A lot of Jedi didn't survive some shots from people just being behind them, not even in front of them. Ki-Adi-Mundi actually turned around and still was taken down, and they both, he and Ayla, who are the two examples I'm thinking of, both have years of experience on Ahsoka because she had that training, because Anakin wasn't satisfied with the norm. Ahsoka was able to survive, which I think is so interesting.
Well, yeah, it's also just being ready for anything. Like the other Jedi would have never thought like, oh, the clones are going to turn on me. And I'm sure Anakin and Ahsoka didn't think any of that, but there are other people out there with guns. Like it's not just the clones and it's not just lightsaber fights. Like, which, I was like, be nice to Ahsoka. But also I was like, this is how she survives and whatever. Okay.
And what I like, so we see her like early Clone Wars doing this training with Anakin, and Ahsoka, at first she's like, come on, like I was out for an hour and like I keep getting knocked down, but they keep going. She wakes up faster and they keep going.
Yeah.
And then we time skip to later when she has her two lightsabers and Anakin's not even there. And she's still like, she gets up and she's like, all right, let's run it again. Like she takes on this practice. She takes on this aspect of Anakin, which is so sad and so great.
Right. And I really appreciated the fact that Rex had a speaking role, even though it was minor, and that he was involved in these training sessions, because it is this bond that she and Rex form between each other that gives her the advantage later on, because he's struggling against Chip, and he, in those microseconds, is able to communicate information that will be vital to her. And so if it wasn't for Anakin and his tactics and forming the team that we know and love, Rex would have never stood a chance. He would have never had those few seconds to hold his individual personality. So even though these sessions were beneficial to Ahsoka, it was also beneficial to her in that it helped form this bond between her and Rex. So I really liked that aspect as well. Very minor and maybe not what Dave was intending, but I sort of read
he
it
intended
that
all
way.
of it.
I know, right? Yeah, but that's how
He knows everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think something like, and also another like small detail like that is like when the first time Ahsoka gets knocked down, Anakin's like, yeah, she'll be all right, and Rex is like, when she first wakes up, we hear Anakin going, "It's okay, Rex, she's fine." Like Rex is worried about her even then. It's very cute.
Yeah.
Also, Rex says, he's like, it was another cute moment when the early training session. Rex is like, "Yeah, Jesse really tagged you." Jesse goes, "Sorry, he's still he hasn't painted his armor yet. It's very cute."
Which
and then
is
you remember
which was
later.
wild to me because Jesse's the one who is insistent upon killing Ahsoka in that final arc. So to hear Rex say, "Oh yeah, Jesse really tagged you good," I was just like, "Oh man, that hurts on a really like deep level because of where we know how it ends up."
I imagine Dave Flynn typing that going.
Yeah, I know. It's exactly what I imagine as well. And and you know, and that's one of the one of the helmets we see staked on the ground is Jesse's helmet. So yeah. Oof. Well done, Dave. Well done.
Yeah.
Dave's life goal, like every day when he wakes up, he's like, how can I make people more sad?
Yes. How can I make people cry a little bit more?
How do I destroy Jonah and everyone's life right now?
And then that takes us to the final scene, which is actually just like a little moment during Siege of Mandalore. And it's because in Siege of Mandalore we see Rex and Ahsoka and they talk, and then it kind of just sort of cuts to them walking out to Jesse, and we get just this tiny little like 20-second moment at the very end. Maybe it's longer than 20 seconds. Like this very little moment that wasn't something if you would ask me like what's a little like a scene you'd like filled in somewhere, I never would have said like, oh, the moment before they walk through the door, but it was so important to see it. I'm so glad we did. That little, kind of resigning themselves to it and hoping things are going to go well. And Rex says, I hope all that training paid off. Like,
yeah. One of the questions, if I ever had the opportunity to ask him, I would ask, like, is that something you envisioned when creating that arc? Or is that something that was just like, hey, that's a really convenient cut. Let's see if we can add something here. Like, was it part of the process or was it just like a happy opportunity that presented itself? I would love to ask him that.
Yeah. Like, did you wake up and just think of this very specific scene and just kind of, I think a very specific scene is like when she is training later on when she's slightly older and she's training with Rex, is that like she's training and she's doing it and she's doing really good. And then Rex doesn't shoot her at all until the last moment and gets her in the back.
And I love that it was Rex that did that. Yeah, that he was the one who could still get her. Yeah, great episode. It became an instant favorite. I was like, oh yeah. I thought the Sith Lord was my favorite, but then when I saw that one, I was like, sorry, Sith Lord.
Yeah, sorry, Sith Lord. Yeah, I was in the same exact boat. Sorry, Sith Lord, you're number 2.
Yeah.
So good. It was. It's like I don't know how much it necessarily like oh, like this changes everything. This adds so much, but it was something I was so great. It was so great to see like that focus on it, on something we saw throughout the Clone Wars, but didn't really get focus on until the end. And seeing it portrayed through these different points in the Clone Wars was really cool.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And then the next one's the last one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Another great episode, in my opinion.
I wonder, it's probably just because of the length of just how long they were, but I don't know Has Star Wars done that before where they just kind of release all of them?
Visions.
Yeah, that's true. Visions was longer too. Could have done one
Visions
at a
was
time.
9 episodes, but they were all similar length or shorter. Some of the Visions episodes were like very short. I think it's just because it wasn't because I think because they called this a series of shorts, even though some of them were like almost 20 minutes long. So I think once it's like less than like 25 minutes is when it's called a short, and they release it all at once. I don't know. That's me guessing.
Yeah, this last one was a bit controversial because I know I haven't read the Ahsoka book in
That's
forever.
my favorite Star Wars book.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah. Here's the thing. I don't want to get mad if I'm not like I don't know. I don't want to get mad, especially after like when we had Kane and Bad Batch. I'm like, okay. But it is like, oh man, like I like that book. And it's at the end of the day, it's all fake. So it's like Ahsoka's novel's still canon to me over this. I saw someone say like someone tried to work it out where like maybe this happened and then Ahsoka joined, but then maybe something happened in the rebellion where she like felt like she was putting people in danger as a Jedi or something, and then goes back, and then we get the Ahsoka novel. It makes things a little wonky, but because I did like this episode, but also in my opinion, I feel like I've already read several times a better version of this story. Not better just because we had more time with it being a book rather than a like 15-minute short.
Gotcha.
So it's hard for me to judge it on its own merit a little bit because I'm like,
So for someone who did not read the book, what happened?
So for the you'd be better off explaining this one. Yeah.
So in the novel, it's basically the same thing. Ahsoka goes to it. So the Padme funeral did not happen in the book, and I love that. That was like flawless. I was crying. So basically in the book, so it's really the same beats. So like Ahsoka's on a farming world. She gets kind of connected with the community. And then in the book, like the Empire comes and slowly starts to really take over, sort of the way we see stuff happening like in Andor and Rebels, like there's a slow takeover of the community. And then Ahsoka gets found out. They send an Inquisitor. She fights the Inquisitor with her bare hands. And then Bail Organa comes, takes the survivors with him to Alderaan. Some of them, Kaden and her sister, most notably, go on to join the rebellion. And Ahsoka becomes Fulcrum. So it's like very similar beats. A lot of people did point out this. So the brother and the sister in this character in this book are basically stand-ins for Kaden. Is it Miara? I think is her sister.
Miara. I want to say her name is Miara. Yeah.
Kaden and Miara, who are both Black women. And then there's 2 white characters in this one, which isn't a good look. So that's why I'm trying to work on both in the canon.
Right. So for me, the way I choose to see it is that there are 2 interpretations. So I am looking at Dave and I am looking at EK. And to me, they're both storytellers in the Star Wars universe who are telling their version of that story. And both of them can exist. And depending on my mood, I will one be a favorite more than the other. But I also think about the fact that in the episodes with Ahsoka leaving the Jedi Council, she was supposed to meet that young man whose name I cannot remember at the moment. But instead, we got the Martez sisters. So to me, even though we didn't get Kaden and her sister outright as we saw them in the novel, we did get a version of them through the Martez sisters. And so to me, they live on in those characters. And then, in this version that Dave is choosing to tell us, she meets a different pair of people, but she's ultimately already met the 2 sisters who, she's interacted with and who she inspires in return. So, and we see that evident in the batch episodes. So, I totally see the reasons why people are upset over it. but I also think about like all the other things that have happened since, and I just think about it in terms of different interpretations, different people telling their version of the story, and we just, it's up to us to choose which one we want to believe in the most. And I don't get too hung up on canon details anymore as much as I used to.
Yeah, I think like for me, like this was a cool sort of Cliff Notes version of the story, and for people who don't read the novel, I'm glad they can see it. But
Yay.
for me, like I said, the Ahsoka is my favorite Star Wars book. So for me, like the novel's what's always going to be canon to me. Especially because I really love the characters of Kaden and Miara, and we see them later in other things too, and I think their stories are really interesting. So for me, like that, and I think there's obviously being a whole book versus 15-minute short, the Ahsoka novel is so much to offer.
Yeah, especially with the white
the
lightsabers, her
white
discovering what's happened to Ilum, and so
there's
yeah,
so
there's
many
a lot
side
in that book that I
yeah
really
there's so
love.
many side characters, so like to me, like that's gonna be the canon version. I do also like the idea, just for fun, just putting them both in there when I don't think that was the intention, but just for trying to figure out like, oh, they can both happen. Ahsoka just
Maybe
did this
it happened twice.
Ahsoka, she has two nickels. So yeah.
Yeah.
I was
It's true.
definitely a little upset, so I don't like to take the stand. I feel like there's like people who are like very mad and like chill, and there's also people like, oh, you're being whiny, get over it. It's like, I think like that's a book I really love, and when I first watched the episode, I was a little upset because I was like, oh, like that's sad. I like it when all my things connect very well.
I gotcha. Yeah.
But
do you think there's a reason that they do that? Just like maybe they just want to tell their own side of the story?
I think that's what it boils down to. It's like, this is how I wanted to portray that story, and I'm just gonna do it. And I think one of the things that Pablo Hidalgo had mentioned at some point, I'm not sure where, but something about how, yeah, most likely, about how the beats are all that's important to them. So like Ahsoka on the farm, meeting the community, getting attached to the community, Inquisitor, rebellion, like those are the main beats that they're going to stick with. And the things that are in between flow depending on who's telling the story. And I'm like, wow, I didn't really think about it that way. And so yeah, I see. So like if they were to do, for example, a short on Kanan or Caleb after he escapes Order 66, in the comics he meets with Janice Casimir. I love Janice Casimir. If Dave were to write his own version of the story where Janice Casimir isn't really present, I'm gonna feel a touch disappointed. I'll be like, dang. But at the same time, I'll be like, you know what? At least the character exists in one version of the story and one interpretation of the story. Here's hoping, either he shows up at some point in time somewhere else, or he can just continue to live happily in my mind where he is living rent free. But yeah, it is a tough conversation to have, because you're going to have very strong emotions about people wanting to see things connect, which is a valid opinion, and then there are other people who are like, it's whatever. It's what else. But yeah, it's a very interesting, and I mean, I would like to hear more about it, like some official word about how they're not just going to connect the dots all the time. They're going to meander about and come up with their own interpretations. And I wish they would be more outright with it.
Yeah. I think still like an issue people are having is like when they erased when they decanonized the EU, they were like, well, now everything's going to connect, and now people are like, well, you erased my story, and then because you said you were going to do this and you didn't. So I think I think if they had just like kind of said like, yeah, we're doing our own versions. I think another thing is like this story is called like Tales, so it's like this is what people are saying happened. You know, we know things get exaggerated and stuff. So like for me, like I'm gonna choose to believe that like the Ahsoka version is the story, and like maybe someone heard that story and it just kind of evolved into the whole flaming town and everything, which wasn't really in the novel. Like
That's a great point. The fact
you
that there
know,
are tales. Yeah, it's like a game of telephone. Over a certain
mm,
point, the story is going to change, and
but I
certain
think
elements will stay the same, but other things will vary based on who's telling the story. That's a great point.
because I think some really good Star Wars books that I recommend to anyone who's interested in the idea are Myths and Fables, Dark Legends, and the Legends of Luke Skywalker, all of which are like myths about characters told like sort of in universe. So there's a story about Darth Vader just going and destroying a town, which it came out before Kenobi, kind of reminds me of what happens in Kenobi. But it's like he was a shadow that moved and he would pass through walls and all sorts of things. And obviously, Vader can't do that. I don't think. Maybe he does something in the comics, but and it's there's a story in the Legends of Luke Skywalker when they talk about Luke, like I can't remember the details, but they talk about Luke doing all these crazy things that like Luke can't do.
Yeah, it was a
But
conspiracy theorist talking to Luke Skywalker about Luke Skywalker.
There's a conspiracy theorist who had all these theories about Luke Skywalker, and there's a couple stories in that book, but one of them is a conspiracy theorist telling Luke Skywalker, who doesn't know is Luke Skywalker, about all these things Luke Skywalker can do. And it's they evolve, and there's quite a few stories like that, and like in Myths and Fables too, where it's clearly like as Star Wars fans who know, like seen the movies and stuff, we know probably didn't happen quite like that, but like things evolve over time as they're told. So that's another way I like to think about it.
Yeah.
Ahsoka novel will always be canon in my heart. Kaden is my queen. Kaden Larkin is my queen.
And another thing, going off of your tales analysis, is the whole golden books, the children's books, and how they retell some of those stories, but they don't really retell them in word for word everything that happened in the movie. It's going to be a very
there's a Lego kids book about Revenge of the Sith, and Anakin puts all the younglings in cages.
Oh no.
So like that's a good example.
It's that kind of a thing where it's like not a watered down version, but like a more simplistic version of the events. Yeah.
So I think as Star Wars expands more and more, like there's going to be, and like a lot of the smaller things haven't bothered me. Like I know Cobb Vanth was like technically inconsistent with his Aftermath story. That was like, oh, it's okay. That doesn't bother me much. This one bothered me a little bit more because I was like, but my girls.
I'm just preparing mentally. This is all mentally preparing me for inevitably it's going to happen with Rebels. It's going to happen with live action. Don't even say that. I know it's going to happen, and I'm like that one, preparing myself for when it does happen.
That might activate my Twitter rage. It hasn't happened yet. That might be what finally gets me. Actually,
you gotta go with the flow. Go with the flow.
No, that was just cruel. Why would you even say that?
I know. I'm sorry. See, I'm preparing you. In order to protect yours. In order for me to protect you, I have to show you how to protect yourself.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say about all that is the good that can come from it is that we get to see more people of color in these roles that would, Ahsoka has very like African features. So like it makes sense that she's played by, African American actress. And like there's some things especially for Rebels that they could have gotten away with, like Sabine, possibly. Definitely not Ezra. Even though we love him, but probably not. Definitely Kanan. Probably. Also, I'm just saying Star Wars could hire my dad as Kanan. It would work. But I think it's like as much as I also really love the cartoons and stuff, if I need to think about it positively, I'm like, okay, well, we get more people of color representation from this. Like we can see like a live action Ezra and Hera and such, even though I won't have the voices, I can always go back to the
I still
video
think
game.
Vanessa could do a good live action Hera.
That'd be great.
If she wants to. I don't know if she's done anything in live action before.
Well, I know that Hera is also kind of having like also African like more features, definitely more from what I've seen.
Because Vanessa mocapped her in Squadron, so I don't know if that means she's really willing to do live action, but
that's true. Yeah,
I just saw this just popped up on
positive.
Twitter. Someone said at the end of Ahsoka, she agrees to run intelligence for Bail. So maybe she does that remotely, goes back undercover as Ashla, and then fully joins Bail at the end. I try to make it both work. I like them both. I try to make it both work.
It's possible. I mean,
no, we need Filoni's full-on response on the podcast now.
No, I'm okay. I can live with this.
Yeah, it's like the Bad Batch Caleb thing again. There was an awesome conversation that Deppa and Kanan had prior to Order 66 around a campfire. And obviously that does not happen in the Bad Batch, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen before in some shape or form in some other scene that is unseen right now, but we know that it exists somewhere in those events. Before, exactly. So yeah, that's you got to find your way of
you're coping.
Yeah, exactly, how to cope with it. You got to find your own coping mechanism. And this is mine.
And I think it's again like with the Kanan comics, like it could be like Kanan comics is sort of his memories when he's like in the back to tank and stuff, so it's memories can get fuzzy, so it's a similar thing to like the Tales idea.
True, very true. Yeah.
I'm trying to make it both work.
A great set of episodes, and I really hope that they'll do more because there's a lot of potential with this concept of telling tales of the Jedi, and I definitely want to see things related to Deppa, like how did she there are legend stories of how she ended up in her situation had brought her into that back to tank, but like I want to see their interpretation of those events, and like I want to know more about Luminara and Barriss. So yeah, I gotta know.
I want Kanan. I want Kanan Tales so bad. I want to see him and Hera's early romance and their little solo adventures before they met everyone.
Gosh, I love that idea. I would love it.
All three of them could be that, honestly, and I would eat it up and want more. But we could see like how they met Zeb or Sabine.
Yes, yes, great point. I would love to see a recreation of, and it's one of my favorite moments, and if they change it around, it's whatever, but one of my favorite moments in A New Dawn is when that catwalk is going to fall on Hera and Kanan stops it with the Force, and there's a moment that they share between each other, and it's just like so perfectly written.
I was even thinking after A New Dawn, like because Hera.
Oh yeah, but if they recreated that would be great.
Yeah. One of my first fan fictions was how they met Zeb. I would love to see a version of that.
Yeah, I would love that.
Sabine, so much. I could just have a whole Tales of Kanan series. I'd be happy for the rest of my life.
Yeah, for sure. Same. But yeah, great show.
I do want to talk, and I'm gonna speak for my time. I want to talk a little bit about the actual. We didn't talk anything about the actual episode. We just talked about things being canon or not.
Oh yeah. Oh, what else happened in the episode? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know. I mostly just want to say I think the Inquisitor was really cool looking. Gave me like Reaper from Overwatch vibes. Lizzy gets that reference now.
I do get the reference.
I got Lizzy to play Overwatch with me.
I know
It's
Reaper.
free now.
Yeah. He kills me a lot in game, but all of them do, but it's okay. I did want to say, to add for my dad, a Tales of the Jedi, but Quinlan Voss. That's it.
Yes,
That's all.
yes.
Yeah, actually, I would love to see him and Ayla when she was a Padawan.
Yes.
And obviously him rescuing younglings and running them through I don't know what it's called, but whatever they have in Kenobi.
And I don't want it to be limited to this time period. Like, I would love to see Tales of the Jedi with Finn and with
Rey
and like other points in time that deal with the Jedi.
I would love to go back to High Republic stuff. There's a character, she's in optional side missions in the Tales from Galaxy's Edge VR game. So like no one knows her. But there's a character named Addie Sunzi, and she gets briefly possessed by a Sith artifact and kills her master. And she's a super cool character because she was a Padawan at the time too, like very young. And I would love to see more about her because I think she's super neat.
There's
she's
so
only
much
in
potential.
Two little game missions. So I would love to see more about her.
Yeah. And I would love
and her master's voiced by Vanessa Marshall.
Oh, cool. And I would love to see those stories being written by new voices, like bring more people in through these shorts. There's so much like a sandbox thing that you can do with this series and just introduce new people to Star Wars, have their voices told, tell those stories. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Besides Ahsoka, a lot of my favorite Star Wars books are the anthology stories. And I think one of the things I love about it is that there's so many different authors writing these stories. Like you look at A New Hope from a certain point of view, they have 40 different authors. Technically more, because some of them were co-written. 40 different authors telling different stories about basically whatever they want in A New Hope. And I think Tales of the Jedi could do something similar and have all these different authors telling all these different stories. Or different screenwriters, not authors. But
yeah. Awesome.
Oh, but the actual episode, it was just, I mean, again, I didn't read the book, but to do it, like, I guess she works for a place where they just are collecting wheat or something.
They're farmers, little farmer community.
They're farmers. They're doing their thing. And they're about to go on break, and so the I don't know his name. They didn't give him a name, I don't think, but one of the worker droids is going and tossing all the hay up there, and eventually it like malfunctions and it's about to fall on this girl, which I think she would have been fine. Maybe like a broken rib, but like I think she would have been okay.
They're pretty heavy.
Again, I'm not saying she wouldn't be like 100%, but I think she would be not dead. So Ahsoka like pushes them all out of the way for her, and she notices it later on. They have that very like awkward kind of like political talk amongst themselves where they're like, the Empire is great. No, the Empire's bad. And he's like, I don't care. Just fun topics, of course, both in real life and like in here. And I guess, later on, the sister, I don't remember her name, goes up to Ahsoka and was like, oh, hey, you're a master Jedi. Out loud, which I figured, they're whispering. There's no way the brother could have heard it, but I guess they were like loudly whispering.
Well, Ahsoka didn't even, she was just like, you shouldn't even say things like that. Like didn't even necessarily like deny it. It was just like kind of like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I don't think the brother overheard. I think he was just suspicious about her. And figured that his theory would pan out.
He's the Tim of Ahsoka's life.
The Tim?
Tim from Andor, episode 3.
Oh, yes. I was like, Tim.
The guy that
Yes.
called on Andor. You remember you went on a whole rant when we podcast about how much you hated Tim.
I didn't think we were putting Andor characters into this
Oh, that
philosophy.
guy. Yes,
Tim
I
with
do. I
two
don't remember
M's.
names.
Because
yes,
two
that's
M's.
right.
Regular Tim spelled is not Star Wars enough, so you add an
Tim with
extra
two
M.
It's not Star Wars enough. Yes.
But yeah, so he goes and he calls the Empire once the sister and Ahsoka are out trying to sell the hay, and they're not making enough money, and they're talking about their financial crisis. And then there's a whole burning village, that they only saw when they were really close up, but
whole thing's on fire.
And the Inquisitor was voiced by the amazing Clancy Brown. Like, the moment I heard him say a word, I knew that was Clancy Brown. That man has such an amazing voice. I was so happy. And the way that Ahsoka took him down, it was just so good.
Was so cool.
Good.
It was just very quick, like you know what you're talking about. It reminded me also of Maul Obi-Wan in Rebels.
Yes, I was just going to say that. It reminded me of just the skill at which Ahsoka has come, and yeah, it was very similar to Obi-Wan in that scene in Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't even he struck at her, she dodged and just grabbed his lightsaber and ended him. Like, you're done.
Masterful. Oh my gosh. Gosh.
Can we talk about the Padme's funeral? Because I was
yeah, that was great. It was great seeing, and I can see why Dave, when he's asked about live action and animation, to him it's all the same. It's all across the board. It's all Star Wars, and to me, animation is a little bit, better in my head, just because I feel like there's so much more you can do with animation, whereas live action, even though you have all these awesome technologies, you're still kind of limited by the fact that this is, humans, and
I also think
have certain physics and rules that we have to abide by. Physics in the physics world. Yes,
sure.
yeah.
I feel like Andor works like live action.
Yes.
Rebels, I think Rebels would I don't know if it would have been bad live action, but it's so much more, so much better.
Yeah. So, and to me, there's just so much more color and life and texture, and so yeah, I appreciate animation for that. And so I forget where I was going with this, but
animation's great.
Yes, so it was great to see Revenge of the Sith being animated, or at least that portion being animated.
Between that and the first part of Siege of Mandalore, I think we can slowly build and piece together. Someday we'll be able to piece together all of Revenge of the Sith animated. Very slowly.
And it was interesting, like my immediate reaction upon seeing the recreation of the scene with Sabine staring at the mural. And there was a live action version of that was circulated at Celebration, and a very poor version of it was circulated on Twitter.
Because I was at Celebration in Sabine. I had people being like, "Did you go to the Mando panel?" And I was like, "Oh no!" And they're like, "Oh, here!" And I had random people just showing me that picture. That's how I saw it. Just random people shoving their phone at me, like, "Oh, you're dressed as Sabine. Look at this."
So yeah, I had a very different reaction. So, but I do understand. The more I see how Dave has interwoven live action and animation together, the more I get his viewpoint, and I'm happy with what I saw with the Revenge of the Sith. That was just beautifully done. Yeah.
And seeing Ahsoka there, and someone pointed out, I didn't even think of this, but this is again bringing up Andor, because Andor is on my mind. But we saw Perrin didn't go to the funeral with Mon Mothma because he sucks. This is a Perrin hate podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know.
Mothma still looks beautiful though. The one time she didn't wear white, but still look beautiful.
Yeah,
I
true.
still need to catch up with the show, so I'm like, I don't
Oh,
know.
have you? Oh, you said you're on episode 5. You need to rewatch too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I need to rewatch 4 and 5 because
Okay.
I wasn't paying
When
all
you
that much
rewatch
attention.
4, when you figure out who Perrin is, hit me up.
Okay, we'll do.
Hate that man.
But yeah,
Spoilers, Mothma is beautiful.
Spoilers.
yes. And I'm trying to think of what else. Oh yeah, and just the fact that Bail had talking to those troopers was essentially talking to Ahsoka, and that communication device is what she ends up pulling out at the end to get her out of this bind. And I love that he essentially asks her, I forget exactly, but something to the effect of, are you ready to do something about this? And she doesn't say a word, she just nods. And I really like that. No words need to be said. This needs to be something I need to be part of.
Yeah. And I really liked in the funeral, like right immediately following the funeral part, was like Rex took her there and was waiting for her.
Oh, that's right, Rex.
Very
Yeah.
Though I hope, with possibly Rex being more in the Bad Batch season 2, I hope we see a little bit more of because obviously we know they split not long after, and we know they connected again with Trace and Rafa because they had the droid. So I'm curious of what order that happened in. Like, did they go meet up with Trace and Rafa and then Ahsoka went off to do her own stuff? And Rex went off on his way. Did Ahsoka tell Rex go find Trace and Rafa and then leave? And then he found that did she find them without Rex? Very curious on what that order is. And even if we don't see it all in detail, I hope we get some clarification. Maybe, probably not anytime soon, but someday.
Gotcha. Yeah. So many questions.
We get more content, but we still are left with so many questions.
Yeah, because it gets your mind going, it gets your imagination going, and it just makes you wonder what comes next, or how is this connected to that, and what order do these things happen. And so I appreciate when stories make you think and make you question. So
this series was really good. I was a little bit disappointed about the Ahsoka novel, but I've accepted it. And I'm really excited. It got me very excited to see the Bad Batch again. I was already excited, but it's always nice to see Star Wars animation. I think Andor is helping me really. I already love Star Wars live action, and Andor is helping me grow very much an appreciation for it. But I think animation will always have my heart. And I'm very excited to get more of it next year with the Bad Batch. Visions season 2 or volume 2 is coming out next year as well. So
that ought to be exciting. Although when it comes to the Bad Batch, I'm also very worried about who are we potentially losing next season. What sort of heartbreaking moments are we bound to see?
If I get Gunji back only to lose him again, I'm gonna be so upset.
I mean, and the whole thing with Cody, what's going to happen with Cody? I will be thinking of you during those episodes.
I better get all the "Are you okay?" texts when Cody dies. I love, because Sappy always took Rex when we played action figures, so I always had Cody. I love him.
Aww. So we will see what happens, what emotional chaos we will experience next season.
We have a lot of good Star Wars to look to next year. We still have the rest of Andor as well, so we're being well fed. I'm very, very happy.
It's true. Alrighty then.
Oh my god, it's almost 10 for you guys. I'm so sorry. I'm not used to being on this side, so Yeah, so we can wrap it up. Jonah, where can we find all your stuff?
Sure.
Geeky
So
Bubble and
right
otherwise.
now, I was previously known as Blue Jay Guys on Twitter, and I've decided to just generalize my usernames across social media, especially specifically my fandom related accounts. So I am now known as Hola Jonah on
Oh.
Twitter and Instagram. So yeah, so HOLAJOHNA. Yay, I think I spelled that right. So that is my username. And so you can still find me podcasting with my mom. Hopefully we'll drop new episodes soon for these Tales of the Jedi series. So that is going to happen soon, and it's the Geeky Bubble podcast.
Hey. So for Star Wars Geek Girl, you have the Facebook page, which is Star Wars Geek Girl, Twitter and Instagram at SW Geek Girl, and there's StarWarsGeekGirl.com. There's a monthly poll. I do book reviews, quizzes on Wednesdays, and blog articles on Fridays. I just wrote one about 10 Jedi I'd like to see tales about. So they're just my ideas. But and then you can follow my personal Instagram and TikTok at Spectre_5. 5 written out, not the number. And then I made a person Twitter like a month ago. It's at Azoeka, so AHZOEKA.
Yeah. For the Rogue Rebels, there's the roguerebels.com, Instagram and TikTok at the Rogue Rebels, Twitch at Rogue Rebels Podcast, wherever you're listening to Star Wars Geek Girl, Facebook page, the Rogue Rebels, Twitter at Rogue Rebels Fam. And for my personal Twitter, where I just post lots of things of Diego Luna and drawings from time to time, it's just at Rogue Rebel S. The name Keith Gergo, but yes.
Yeah, you'll get Keith Gergo soon, Jonah.
Yeah, you'll understand soon, Jonah.
I will look forward to that.
All right, so thank you everyone so much for listening. I'm so glad you had to hear us ramble about Tales of the Jedi. And thank you, Jonah, for coming on the podcast with us. It's been a while, but it's always so much fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so check out all the things that we said. May the Force be with you, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Star Wars Geek Girls. They're geek girls that like Star Wars. And sometimes cry.